Oh, Brian Fuller. Oh, Brian Fuller. Oh, Brian Fuller. Now, let me get this straight. And I have discussed remakes. I did one on potential Jaws remake. This remake I'm talking about today seems very much like it could happen. I've also, obviously, as you know, have discussed Silent Hill 2 remake, which got a bit of backlash and, a few up and down comments, which we like. We love debate. It's healthy, and whether it's negative or positive, I do enjoy it, I'm not going to lie, because it gets people talking. But this movie, and this is a movie, not a game, it is another sin. There is talk of a remake to the 1983 classic by John Carpenter, Christine. What made me want to make this video is I've recently watched the movie itself, and there is going to be apparently a remake in the plotting. There is a remake in development for Christine, John Carpenter's original classic Christine. And the most shocking thing about this potential remake, and it does seem a little bit more than potential at the moment, it does feel like Christine, the remake, is going to happen. And that is that John Carpenter himself believes that this remake could actually be better, or thinks it will be better than the original. I don't know anymore. Christine is a classic. It's a brilliant movie. I mean, it really is a top movie. It's a fantastic film. It's a fantastic film, from the characters to the soundtrack. Just the overall ambience of the film is just absolutely phenomenal. And this is why I keep saying it, guys. Impossible remakes. And I've said this about, obviously, the Jaws remake, which for me is going to happen. I know all these films are speculation at the time, and a lot of it's talk within the media that these films are happening, but they are going to happen. We best get used to it, because people will remake anything, and these films are going to get remade, whether it's now or in 5-10 years time. They're going to get remade because people, they like to spoil a good thing. If they can make money, they like to spoil a good thing. But we're going to start off with the cast, and this is another thing, I've said it before with the Jaws remake. You can't replace the cast for Christine. You cannot. The characters were so brilliantly casted. They truly were. You had Keith Gordon as Arnie Cunningham, John Stockwell as Dennis Gilder. But the one character I liked, probably more than any other, was probably Robert Prosky as Will Darnell. Take Robert Prosky as Will Darnell. He was funny, yet serious. I always feel when I watch Christine, and I watched it back a few days ago, I always feel with Christine, when I watch the film, now when you can say this to anyone, if anyone was to suggest this film to you, and you were to ask them, what's this film about? What is this film about? Oh, it's a film about a car that turns you evil, and the car kills you. So basically the car comes after you and kills you. It's basically a film about a killer car. You'd be thinking, a film about a killer car? That sounds terrible. And I'll be honest with you, when I first watched Christine and people were telling me what the film was about, I thought it sounded terrible. A film about a killer car. It sounded cheesy, it sounded ridiculous, I'm not going to lie. It didn't sound like anything that could be turned into a good, gritty, tense horror film. When someone said to me a killer car, the first thing I thought was, this is going to be slightly comical. But such is John Carpenter, of course, who made Christine, based, of course, off the icon himself, Stephen King, who wrote the book. But trust John Carpenter to actually turn a film about a killer car into a 80s horror movie classic. It's just what he does. He's such a good director. John Carpenter is a legend of the game. But this is one of the points. John Carpenter was able to turn a book about a killer car into a tense, terrifying horror movie. That's a difficult thing to do when you think about the fact that it's a killer car. In my mind, that's a difficult thing to be able to do. In my mind, it's kind of the equivalent of making the Teletubbies scary. That might not be too difficult because they are slightly eerie looking anyway. But you know what I mean. It was a difficult thing to do. So when they try and recast Buddy Repardon, when they try and recast Arnie and Dennis and Darnell, we know, or at least I believe I know, that the actors they get to replace these characters are going to be soulless. They're not going to have the aura that those characters had. Most remakes I see, or most modern day sequels or whatnot, acting's always terrible. It's awful. It's literally, excuse me, the acting's always, for me, feels, I'll get my words out in a minute. The actors and actresses are always poor. They always are poor. I'm not saying the acting in Christine's fantastic, because it's not. The acting in Christine is not fantastic. I, for one, don't want to see a remake to Christine. I don't want to see a remake to Christine. The only thing they're going to be able to get right is the car. That's literally about it. I've seen The Fog, I've seen Halloween, I've seen Christine, as I've mentioned, and yeah, the acting's not great. It's not great. In fact, the acting's quite poor. But you still feel like you're watching a good quality movie. A good quality movie, and the casting's actually good. It's just, you know, perhaps the acting's not peak. The acting's not sensational, but the casting for the roles and the actors picked are the right people for the role. Now it just feels like they're in that role because of how they look. And, you know, when we're talking about remaking films, when we're talking about remaking Jaws or remaking Christine, we are definitely talking about movies that cannot be done. They cannot be remade in any way, shape or form. Forget special effects, because special effects are obviously one of those things that, yeah, okay, we have to concede are probably going to look better now. But apart from that, they're completely dead. The soundtrack, perhaps you could potentially recapture. You could definitely use, obviously, the same similar songs. The actual theme song for Christine, of course, is iconic. It's brilliant. But for me, the one thing you cannot recapture is the mood of the film, the ambience of the film. Christine does a great job of making you feel tense when you watched it. I actually watched it a few days ago, and this film, not, you know, bearing in mind this film is nearly 40 years old, it made me feel engrossed and tense watching the film. I've watched it about 3 or 4 times. I've only seen a few remakes in my entire life that have actually been better than the original. I'll probably say The Hills of Eyes is one. The Hitcher, I don't know if you've ever seen the original Hitcher. I thought the remake of The Hitcher wasn't too bad. But, you know, I just get that feeling that in time they're going to start making remakes to real classics. And I mean real classics, like Jurassic Park, Empire Strikes Back. If it ever gets to that point, oh, God help me. Oh, God help us. We are effing doomed. But it's practically going over old ground of what I said about Jaws. Lifeless actors that literally can't act or, you know, cannot possibly live up to the original character that was played or who it was played by. It's basically going over old ground, guys. If they remake Christine, we're going to see the same thing. But yes, guys, give me your thoughts on the Christine remake. Should it happen? Is there a point in it happening? And like I said, give me your thoughts in general on remakes to classical films, because I'm getting the feeling, guys, I want you to answer this question potentially, if you could, in the comments. Do you think in time we are going to start getting remakes to some serious classical films? Films that, forget being on the cusp of the fact that you can't remake them, you most certainly cannot remake them. Jaws probably is included in that. You know, films like Jaws, impossible. There's certain films out there you could probably concede that can be done better in certain ways, but films like Jaws, it's pointless, you know. Let's say if they remade Titanic, pointless, absolutely ridiculous. It would be a non-starter from the go. Like I said, Jurassic Park, let's say for argument's sake in the next 15, 20 years, maybe even less than that, they just decide to remake the first Jurassic Park film because they think they can do certain things better. Just because they know it's going to make people excited, thinking, oh my God, Jurassic Park, a remake, you know. Same for a lot of films, guys, but, you know, Christine, if you've probably not seen it, a lot of you probably haven't seen it, Christine, 1983 by John Carpenter. It's a brilliant film. It really is. If you haven't seen it, give it a watch. But yes, if you have seen it, you'll probably know what I'm talking about. It's not a film you can remake. It's not a film you can remake, and it's not a film you should even attempt to remake. I'm disappointed. But anyway, guys, don't forget to comment and like this video and subscribe to the channel as well. I will see you next time, guys, for another exciting video from yours truly, Axel Williams. It's over and out. I will see you soon.